How do I go from stacks of scrapbook layouts to finished albums sitting on my shelf holding all my favorite memories? Hey crafty friends, it's Chelsea. And in my most recent layout share video, you guys were wanting to see how I go from my creation process to storing my layouts in albums and kind of the steps in between. First off, I don't create chronologically. So I go with whatever paper kit or workshop that I'm using, and I select photos that match the color, match the theme, and that can be from any time really. But right now I'm kind of working in that 2020, 2021, 2022 era. A lot of my albums from before that are finished, and that's because that is before I had my daughter. So I had way less photos back then to scrapbook. It was just easier to stay caught up. I always like to be at least a year behind so that I have photos from all the seasons that I could choose from. So if I was working with a Christmas kit, I would have photos from the previous Christmas that I could scrapbook, and I didn't have to wait until I had taken the current year's Christmas pictures. Well, now I have a cutie little patootie and I have way too many photos to do that. So my system is ever evolving, but right now I have those 3 years of albums that I'm working on. A lot of my layouts are made during my scrapbooking Zooms with my VIP customers, and those are usually with the Close to My Heart workshop kits. So when I pick a kit, I go through, print off my photos, and as I'm making the layouts, I am putting my photos on there. For many years, I would just make the layouts and then go to find photos later, maybe. So a few years ago, I made a promise to myself that I was going to put photos on those layouts as I made them, and I have done pretty good at that. Where I have kind of fallen off is when it comes to journaling. I need to be in the headspace for journaling, and I find that when I'm together with people, I just can't think clearly enough about the stories that I want to tell and write them in a concise manner. So they go into one of these bins here that is marked needs journaling. So finished layouts that have the photos and everything on them go into this bin, and then in theory, I will sit down and do a whole bunch of journaling at one time, write several stories on all of these different pages, and then put them into their next home. So you can see I have a very extensive stack right now. I need to get on this and do that so that I can file these away in the correct year. These containers are iris containers from Michaels, and they come in this 6-drawer unit. I've collected these over the years, these 6-drawer units, and I even picked up a couple at Costco way back in the day when they had a selection of scrapbooking supplies. So once I have done the journaling, then those layouts go into the correct bin that has the year on it. So I have a couple for 2020, a couple for 2021. So far, I only have one bin for 2022, but that's because I've just barely started scrapbooking this current year. Usually the layouts will sit in these containers for quite a while until I get a good stack of layouts that will fill a whole album. So the number totally depends on how thick the layouts are, and I just kind of wait until I think there's probably enough, and then I go ahead. I do like to store my layouts somewhat chronologically inside the album, but it's very loose. It's kind of like all the winter stuff goes together, all the summer stuff goes together. So it's kind of categorized by seasons in my scrapbooks. I really enjoy using postbound albums just because I make a lot of double page layouts, and the way they lay so that the pages are right next to each other and it's kind of one continuous spread. I really enjoy that. So to me, it's worth a little bit of extra work to do it this way. They are a little bit of a pain to rearrange all the time, so that's why I put all my layouts into a container and then into an album all at one time. If you really like moving layouts around and being able to easily swap things out and rearrange, and maybe you make mostly single page layouts, then D-ring albums are probably a really good option for you, and I have used a few over the years, but my true love is still postbound albums because I just love the way they look when you're flipping through them. Once I've filled up an album, I've attached any flip flaps. on the outside of the page protectors. Then they go on this shelf, which is a Kallax unit from IKEA. These shelves are great because they fit these large 12 by 12 albums. As you can see here, I have a full house. So I really need to either get another shelf or get a larger shelf. These Kallax units come in lots of different configurations, so you can get with different numbers of rows, and I could really use another row. I label my albums with the close to my heart label holders, and I just have them labeled with the year or the location. Most of my albums are either chronological from the year or vacation albums. I have some Disney albums, and then I have some incentive trip albums for the trips that I've earned with close to my heart, and then my yearly albums. There's a couple other things like wedding, baby, those sorts of things, but for the majority, it's the chronological yearly albums. I also have my very first album, which is a Creative Memories, a strap hinge album that I made over 20 years ago. That's really hard to say. I was a teenager. I was still in high school, I believe, when I first made my first scrapbook album. This is the process that works for me, and I hope you were able to find some helpful information. If you do something different, I would love to hear about it down in the comments. Make sure you check out my most recent layout share video. You can click that link on the screen, and I will also link my scrapbooking process video playlist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.